Tu Tien once believed that no matter how hard life became, if she just endured and nurtured her family, one day Tien would understand her heart. But she was mistaken. The day Tien brought Ly Tu Tien home, she lost not only her husband, but also the only refuge she had ever known. The sight of Hoai walking arm in arm with Tien, warmly welcomed by his entire family, while she, who had sacrificed her youth for that very home, was reduced to a faint and almost invisible presence, was utterly heartbreaking. Her mother-in-law did not hesitate to unleash a barrage of cutting remarks, as if she had been waiting for this moment to vent all her contempt. "This home needs a true heir, not a useless woman." Each word struck Tu Tien's heart like a knife. Her eyes brimmed with tears as she clutched the hem of her worn blouse, struggling to hold back her sobs in front of those who showed her no compassion. Tien, the man who had once consoled her and promised her everything, now stood coldly by without a hint of hesitation. In his eyes, she had ceased to exist. The pain did not end with the insults. When her mother-in-law shouted for her to leave the house, Tu Tien nearly collapsed. She could not understand what she had done wrong, aside from being born into a life of misfortune. On the day she first entered her husband's home, she had timidly crossed its threshold carrying dreams of a warm and loving family, but today it was that very doorway through which she was forced out in disgrace, abandoned by her husband's indifference and the disdainful glares of his entire family. She wanted to protest, to ask Tien if he still had any affection for her, but she soon realized that it no longer mattered. She had become nothing more than a disposable object, replaced by someone else. Tu Tien walked away from the home that had once been her sanctuary, her steps as heavy as if bound by invisible chains. The sky was clear, yet her heart was in turmoil. Salty tears streamed down her cheeks, mingling with the profound pain of a betrayed woman. She carried nothing but a few sets of worn clothes and a shattered heart. Her small, solitary figure, once a familiar sight along the village road, now appeared utterly alien. She had no idea where to go or what to do next. Everything she had ever cherished and safeguarded over the past 5 years no longer belonged to her. Perhaps the deepest agony was not being thrown out of the house, but the realization that she had never truly been a part of it. She had tried, she had endured, yet in the end she remained a stranger in her own husband's family. And now she leaves empty-handed, her heart laden with wounds that may never heal. Tu Tien left the house she once considered her sanctuary in tears and unending sorrow. Cast out cruelly by the very husband she once loved, she wandered until she reached the foot of a hill, by a flowing river where her tears blended with the murky water. She had no idea what the future held, only that her heart was shattering with every step she took. In the midst of her despair, the crunch of footsteps on dry grass made Tu Tien lift her head. Before her stood an elderly man, a local villager with eyes full of compassion. He did not speak much, merely observing the dejected woman as if he understood the pain she endured. After a moment of quiet reflection, he gently asked, "Young lady, what is wrong? Why are you sitting here crying?" His warm words sparked a glimmer of hope in her, and Tu Tien nodded and followed him. The man took her to meet the village chief, the head of the village known for his kind heart. At the village chief's home, his sympathetic gaze seemed to ease her sorrow, even if only slightly. Fully aware of the plight of a daughter-in-law treated unfairly by her husband's family, the village chief decided to intervene. He accompanied Tu Tien back to Tien's house, hoping to find a solution for her amid life's storm. As soon as they stepped inside, the cold and tense atmosphere enveloped them. Tien's mother-in-law, with a sour tone and a piercing glare, spoke scornfully upon seeing her return. "This house does not accept a woman like you." This contempt set the stage for a fierce argument. The village chief, trying to restore calm, proposed a fair division of the property by offering her a share of the livestock such as oxen, pigs and chickens to give her a means to start over. However, Tien, her ex-husband, coldly declared, "You have already left this house, so do not expect to take anything with you." His words only intensified the tension as his mother-in-law joined in with loud disapproval, ordering both the village chief and Tu Tien away. Under the pressure from Tien's family, the village chief, despite his best efforts, could do little more. Tu Tien stood there silently, watching her former husband, and felt that everything was over. No home, no property, no trace of the past affection remained. Only bitter pain. Choosing to part ways with her past, Tu Tien gripped her worn blouse, bowed her head, and turned away. The village chief, though filled with regret, could only follow her, leaving behind a broken family and a life steeped in bitterness. Tu Tien sat curled up on the porch, her thin hands trembling as she clutched a pillow while tears silently streamed down her sunken cheeks. She no longer had the strength to wipe away each tear of humiliation, and could only bow her head, hiding the pain welling up in her chest. The lively sounds of laughter and conversation coming from inside pierced her heart like knives. While Huang, the new wife, enjoyed meticulous care from her mother-in-law, eating well, dressing beautifully, and being pampered like royalty, Tu Tien was forced to labor tirelessly as if she were nothing more than an unwelcome guest, in the very home she once called her sanctuary. Her mother-in-law had never spared her even a glance of compassion. She only knew how to shout and scold, treating Tien as a useless burden, an irritating thorn that could never be fully removed. "What are you doing so slowly? Never mind the food or the water, all you do is sigh and complain, useless woman." The harsh voice of her mother-in-law rang out, startling Tien. She quickly wiped her tears and shuffled into the kitchen to resume her work. In recent days she had lost count of how many times she had cried. From early morning until dark she took care of every household task, cooking, laundry, splitting firewood, fetching water. Her hands had become rough and her back ached, yet she never dared to complain. She feared that if she spoke, all she would receive in return would be poisonous words and merciless criticism. She had once hoped and believed that no matter what happened, as long as she endured, everything would eventually be all right. But now, she understood that no matter how hard she tried, they would never consider her a part of this family again. Inside the house, Huang leaned on Tien and laughed joyfully. She did not have to do anything and was treated with care and tenderness. All she had to do was eat and enjoy the comfort that this family provided. As for Tu Tien, who had shared 5 years of life with Tien and had once knelt to beg for her mother-in-law's affection, she now felt no different from a stranger, abandoned, and an interloper with no right to belong. As the afternoon slowly faded, the soft sunlight fell on Tu Tien's haggard face. She gripped her worn blouse tightly, her eyes blurred with tears. She wanted to scream and demand to know why life had been so unfair to her, but in the end she could only remain silent. She had no one left to confide in, no one to lean on. In this household she was nothing more than a shadow, quietly existing, silently enduring, and slowly sinking into profound loneliness. Tu Tien silently carried 2 heavy water buckets, her thin shoulders trembling under the weight of both physical and emotional burdens. The dirt road from the well to the buffalo pen was muddy, and her bare feet were stained with dirt as she walked unsteadily, yet she gritted her teeth and endured. Her mother-in-law stood at a distance with her arms folded across her chest, her disdainful eyes following every movement of her daughter-in-law, ready to shout if she fell behind even slightly. Every day, from early morning until dark, Tu Tien was forced to work ceaselessly. After feeding the pigs, she would then gather grass and lead the buffalo to the field. Under the harsh sun, with sweat soaking her shirt and her face pale from exhaustion, she never dared to complain. If she paused even for a moment, she would be scolded harshly and called names such as useless or a burden. These biting words cut into her heart like sharp knives each day, leaving her with an indelible sense of humiliation. Her once soft hands had grown rough and calloused, and her fingers cracked from the constant tasks of soaking water, cleaning the buffalo pen, and scrubbing after the pigs. Sometimes, thorns would prick her hand and cause a small stream of blood to flow. Yet she felt no sorrow, because the pain on her skin was nothing compared to the wounds in her heart. With each passing day she felt more like a mere shadow, living without any hope for the future. She looked at the pigs in the pen, the animals that were fed better than she was, and her heart ached. She had once dreamed of a warm family, a place where she and her husband would build happiness together, but now that dream was shattered. The husband she once loved had changed, and the mother-in-law she had once respected now saw her as nothing more than an unwanted burden. She was pushed into the most laborious tasks, tormented both physically and emotionally, yet no one cared about her suffering. After a long, exhausting day, Tu Tien sat down on the porch, her eyes vacant as she gazed out over the distant field. She hastily wiped away the tears that had just fallen, but the tears continued to flow. She was so tired, so in pain, and she did not know how to escape this miserable life. Even if she cried or felt pain, no one cared. The sunset stained one corner of the forest red, yet inside her there was only darkness with no escape. Before her the buffalo calmly grazed, and in the distance a small stream babbled softly as it flowed. A gentle breeze swept by, carrying a hint of coolness from the late afternoon, but it could not soothe the wounded heart of Tu Tien. Tu Tien sat quietly on the porch, her eyes red as she looked toward the stove where a lively fire danced in the open-air house. Laughter and cheerful chatter echoed from inside, where her husband's family gathered around a table laden with chicken, fresh vegetables and other delicious dishes. They enjoyed their meal with joy, while she quietly bowed her head beside a small bowl that held only a few pieces of chicken bone and stiff chicken feet, not a scrap of meat in sight. She did not cry, but her heart ached with a deep, twisting pain. She knew how to endure hunger, but this humiliation was almost unbearable. Hong, the woman whom Tien had brought into the family, had not only stolen her place, but also made every effort to ensure that the entire family despised her even more. Hong spoke ill of her and stirred up trouble so that her mother-in-law would be even harsher toward her. Even Tien had changed. He no longer showed even a trace of compassion for the former wife who had once shared in his hardships. Every day Tu Tien was ordered about like an unwelcome guest in the very home she once called her own. After washing clothes and cooking, she had to head out to the garden, the buffalo pen, and perform all sorts of exhausting tasks. Huang enjoyed a carefree life, while no matter how much Tu Tien worked, she never received a single kind word. One day, after she had just finished washing dishes and had not even had a moment to rest her hands, Huang threw a pile of dirty dishes and utensils onto the floor, her tone haughty as she said, "Hurry up and do it right, you useless woman." Tu Tien bit her lip tightly, too afraid to speak up. She feared that if she raised her voice, even harsher words would be unleashed upon her. Yet there were moments when she could not hold back her tears. When night fell and the porch grew cold, she collapsed onto her knees, silent tears streaming down. She had no one to confide in and no place to lean on. She felt like a lonely shadow in her own life, with no one to care about the pain she was enduring. Tu Tien did not know how much longer she could bear this torment, but she knew that if she could not find a way to stand up, she would forever be trampled like this. Yet she was so weak and her heart so full of sorrow that she wondered if there was any path for her at all.
Tu Tiên từng nghĩ rằng dù cuộc sống có khó khăn đến đâu, chỉ cần cô nhẫn nhịn vun vén gia đình, thì rồi một ngày Chiến sẽ hiểu được tấm lòng của mình. Nhưng cô đã lầm. Ngày Chiến dắt lò thị hường về nhà, cô không chỉ mất đi một người chồng mà còn mất đi chốn nương tựa duy nhất. Hình ảnh Hường tay trong tay với Chiến được cả gia đình chồng đón tiếp nồng hậu, trong khi cô, người đã hy sinh cả thanh xuân vì mái nhà này, chỉ là một cái bóng nhạt nhòa. Thật sự quá nỗi đau lòng. Mẹ chồng cô không ngần ngại buông những lời cay nghiệt như thế, chỉ chờ cơ hội này để trút hết khinh thường lên đầu cô. Cái nhà này cần có cháu đích tôn, chứ không phải cần một người đàn bà vô dụng. Từng lời nói chữ dắt dao cứ sâu vào trái tim tự Tiên. Đôi mắt cô đỏ hoe, bàn tay nắm chặt vào vạt áo cũ. Cô kìm nén để không bật khóc trước mặt những kẻ chẳng chút xót thương.